Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering What We Do in the Shadows, Season 5, Episode 10, Exit Interview. In this episode, Guillermo gets fully transformed, and it isn't what he was expecting. Turns out my concerns regarding his ability to take human life were valid after all. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Max for commissioning this episode. So, this is sort of a mixed review on this episode, kids, because there are some things that I really, really enjoyed about this. And then there were some things that I was sort of disappointed in, because I felt like we had a lot of potential and it was not fully explored in the way that I was sort of expecting it to be. So, overall, my issue with the way that this goes is that I can't help but feel having Guillermo transform fully, but then get turned back the way that is so quickly done here. It just kind of feels like you could have had maybe not a whole season, but like a good chunk of a season dedicated to what it's like for Guillermo to struggle with being a vampire and not being willing to like admit that it's not working for him. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, there was a part of me that just felt there is so much potential here. And I wanted to see him get what he wanted and really live with it for a little while. And I don't know if part of the issue, like, there's something that I'm sort of suspicious of here, guys. And I don't know that this is like a totally valid thing, but it occurred to me after the fact that maybe the reasoning behind, and you know, I'm being a little bit paranoid here, but they kind of like thrust Guillermo into the killing people lifestyle, I guess, if that's the way that I want to say it, part of being a vampire pretty quickly. And there was a part of me that sort of wondered, is this Nandor hoping that he can edge Guillermo towards regret and thus have an excuse to kill Derek because he's just pissed that Derek turned his familiar? Like, you know, I just had a real feeling of like, this seems awfully convenient when it turns out that killing Derek will put Guillermo back to being human. And I don't know. I don't really believe that, but there was a part of me that sort of felt like, But yeah, guys, I don't know. I felt like how quickly Guillermo realizes that he doesn't like it. I want there to be a season of him like really trying to pretend that he can do it, and maybe hiding the fact that he is disturbed by this. You know, the vamps kill somebody and he goes ahead and like feasts on the person they already killed, but he isn't able to kill on his own, and they don't really quite notice the fact that he isn't out here murdering by himself. I don't know. And then enjoying some of the superpowers about it a bit more. I just felt like there was so much here that they could do. The rest of the gang struggling to let him in as an equal. And what does that look like? how are they able to cope with that after years and years of dismissing him, of talking down to him and seeing him as a servant? Maybe the transition into him being one of them is not real happy. And maybe he starts to realize that, like, their disdain isn't just that he's a familiar, but him as a person, and that turning didn't serve a complete solution to the problem that he was hoping it did. And then what? Does somebody want to become his familiar? And does he feel weird about that? There's just like, there's a lot that they could do here. And I was really excited that they decided that he was going to turn, and just felt a bit let down at the fact that, like, by the end of the episode, that's it. So anyway, yeah, the overall thing, I felt a little bit bummed, but I will say that I thought that this episode overall was, like, really well constructed. So we start things off with Derek showing up at the door of, like, this cheap motel, and he's been followed by the crew, obviously, but I love the fact that, like, slowly it turns out that Derek has told Loki everybody where Guillermo is, even though he is trying desperately to keep his head down. Everybody knows, and slowly they all begin to just, like, roll up on him in this hotel room. So what he just flew for hours and hours. And I'm not even sure if he says exactly where he winds up, like if he's still in the New York State, or, you know, how far he's actually gone. But, yeah, we find out that it's been like a couple weeks, I think, since he has holed up here. And he is really dismissive of Derek and kind of impatient with him in a way that later on Nadja warns him, this could be bad for you, my guy. Like, maybe you don't want to talk to your maker like that. It's super disrespectful. And also, you have a vested interest in making sure that this dude is alive and safe, because something happens to him and it could fuck you up too. And here's what I enjoy about this, is the show has been very careful to really not describe the nature of somebody's relationship to their maker before now. So introducing this idea that, like, your maker gets killed and you become human again, there's no real feeling of, like, retconning here. It feels like if we're 5 seasons in and this hasn't been talked about, that was purposeful. They didn't want us to know that this is how it worked, because then maybe we'd have seen it coming, that Derek was going to die, which R.I.P. Derek. He is sort of alive, I guess you could say. But, you know, like, how alive though? And the state of things with, like, creators is already sort of called into question here with her saying that, because she doesn't get specific. She doesn't say, if he dies, you go back. She just says it could have catastrophic consequences for you too. And I immediately wanted to know what that meant, because I have read a lot of vampire books at this point, and the way that a maker's relationship, like, how that works with their protege, for lack of a better way of saying that, it's wildly different depending on the property that you're reading. And for example, in the Sookie Stackhouse novels, a maker can force you to do things. Like, it's not up to you. It isn't your, it has nothing to do with your will, and it has everything to do with them basically controlling your body. If you say do a thing, they physically cannot help it. They have to do it. And so you can imagine that this can be held over people's heads quite a lot. Now, then we have like, something like, what's the other one that I was thinking of? Like Twilight, for example. The person who creates you, really, once they've created you, that's a wrap. They don't need to be in touch with you anymore. They can be. They can, and it seems like the way that things happen tends to be that there is a sort of unifying family structure that begins to form a lot of the time, just at least between those two people. But it's by no means the way that it's done. It is sort of just at the whim of the master, whether or not they're going to stay in touch. So, it can go in a million different directions. And I just kind of like the fact that it really hasn't been made clear. Like, the only people that we know who are related in that way are Nadja and Laszlo. And they have like a really specific type of relationship that there was no servitude. She didn't take Laszlo as a familiar for years on end and then turn him. She saw him, wanted to have him as a partner, and like busted in and turned him, and that was that. And now he's like with her forever. So the vibe of the two of them together, I really enjoy, because there's no weirdness about a hierarchy between the two of them. There's the power structure doesn't feel questionable. And it would feel probably more questionable if it had been like Laszlo that turned her, for example, But I wonder if there has ever been a point where like Nadja's been in enough danger that Laszlo was worried about how things would go for himself. And I wonder if there's ever been an instance where a vampire has been turned, then their master is killed, and they, go back to being human, and they actually enjoy being human for a while before finding another vamp who will turn them back. Like, has there ever been a vamp who they become human again after years and years of being a vamp, and they decide, you know what? I thought I was going to miss it, and I don't. I think I am just going to stay human and live out a normal life and die. I really want like some other examples of this having happened. And I'm sort of wondering if maybe that might be something that comes up a little bit later. I just, like I said, there's a lot of potential for what they did here that they didn't pursue. There's still some things that like they could attempt, and I don't know whether I should bother getting my hopes up for that or not, whether it's something they're even interested in. But so I'm all over the place here. Sorry guys, but I'm just trying to sort of keep my thoughts straight. This is when Nadja shows up, and I love her being in like a trench coat with this fedora and saying that she's in disguise, so absolutely nobody would be able to tell who she was. And Derek is the one who told her where she was, or where he was. She told me her name was Detective Policeman. Oh my God. I cannot stop laughing. You guys, the first time I heard that, I guffawed. I really did. There was something about that Detective Policeman that really fucking got me. But yeah, Guillermo wants raw meat, and he basically threatens Derek with a steak. As he's saying it, I need you to bring me raw meat. So he's clearly like not drinking human blood on the reg here. He drank it that one time, and now he's trying to sort of sate himself. And does this work? Is he sucking the moisture out of the ground beef? Is that what's happening? Like, I have a lot of questions about how this can work. A lot of questions. But yeah, so this is when Nadja is just like, you can't fucking talk to him like that. And I love this when Nandor is like losing his mind. And when Guillermo asks, how's he doing? She just sort of underplays it. And he's thinking, well, maybe if I like wrote to him. She says, yeah, if you like wrote him a suicide note and then actually followed through on it, then that would probably cool him down. And at this point, we hear the people next door and they're fucking really, really loudly. I thought for sure it was going to turn out it was Laszlo over there, that he had also found out where Guillermo was staying and that he had followed him and was now, you know, fucking the person next door on his way to hanging out with Guillermo and talking to him about what's been happening. And no, it's just some random. But she goes over to yell at them for how loud they're being and then just joins in. She just is like, you know what? I think I might go for some of that too. So it's a pretty good moment though, because I really like Guillermo just immediately knowing what's going on. Like, oh yeah, no, she's joined in. Okay, that's that. So the he's just so full of regret here about the fact that he let Derek turn him, and I think there's really a sense for him of realizing that his relationship with Derek isn't what it should be. That Derek being his master isn't gratifying to him. The fact that he doesn't have respect for this guy bums him out. And I just, that seems like a real concern to me. You know, if you really are sort of in this permanent relationship with a person that you owe the way that he feels he owes him, and you don't feel any respect for that person, yeah, that's going to be a problem. So anyway, the next thing that we see is Nandor on the streets searching for Guillermo. And it turns out that he is staking out a Panera Bread. And he sees this short, heavy-set dude leaving the Panera Bread and assumes that this is Guillermo. And he jumps down on him and begins to strangle him before it is made clear that is not Guillermo. That is Patton Oswalt. Which I have to be real with you guys. There was something delightful about him turning up here. It was just such a silly thing. And I don't particularly like Patton Oswalt. Like, I don't have a problem with him. He's been kind of shitty in the past. But I really do think that for the most part, I've sort of liked his work. And he turns up as a guest in a lot of comedies, and I think he always really brings something to the table. It seems like he's always having a good time and going for it a little bit. And he informs Nandor that there are like lots of Panera Breads, which apparently, or I said he informs Guillermo. I meant Nandor if I said Guillermo. But he, says like, there's a lot of them, you know, at which point Nandor is just like, fuck. He gets so frustrated here. And he winds up taking custody of Patton Oswalt in a way that I was not prepared for him to do. The whole rest of the episode, he's basically like following or keeping him next to him for company and like as a private therapist. And anytime Patton Oswalt tries to talk about something unrelated to his own issue, Nandor low-key threatens him. And when I say low-key, I mean like, you know, he pats his hand, but he does it like in such a way that he squeezes his bones sort of thing. So we go back to Guillermo's hotel room. And this is when Colin shows up and says that he has to perform an exit interview. Guys, is this real? Or is this a means of feeding on Guillermo? I couldn't tell. I thought at first that it was a real thing that was sort of silly. But then as it continues, I sort of thought, maybe not. Maybe this is a bit of a joke. Like, he says something like, I know your time is valuable. And when he turns and looks at the camera, he makes a face that is just kind of the same face that he makes when he's feeding, but not quite. And I couldn't tell if it was supposed to be that he was sort of like preparing to feed, and that was the thing, you know what I mean? So anyway, yeah, I'm curious what you guys think, if this was like meant to be something that was more a hint at his intentions, or if he's just giving the camera a mischievous look. See, the thing is, like, even if he's not trying to feed on him, the mischievous look is what makes me feel like this isn't real then, is it? That he isn't actually, like, doesn't need to conduct an exit interview. I don't know. I'm really, really interested in what you guys think. Like, it doesn't matter ultimately, but I like have some curiosity about the structure of things with the vamps and how much there is, like, the questions that he's asking, like, do they expect him to ask them? Is it really something that's part of his job the way he's making it out to be? Or did he just come up with this system himself and they just ignore whatever his findings are? You know, I'd be willing to accept that as well. So he begins, and there's like a recorder and he's got a notepad. Mr. De La Cruz is the way he says it. What's prompting you to leave your job? Nando trying to kill me. And what was your salary as a familiar? Oh, I don't get paid. No, but honestly, for this to work, I kind of need a ballpark figure. Like 500, 550 a week. I don't get paid. Uh-huh. And do you think we can get away with not paying the next person? You guys, if we're being honest about what exit interviews are like, it's sort of that. It really kind of is. It's feeling out what people were willing to tolerate and whether or not you could get away with that again. How angry do they seem about the way that they've been treated? Is it a concern that you need to, you know what I mean? Like, I was talking about this with Rashawn the other day because we were talking about the time had rolled around for self-evaluations, which, if anything, are one of the most useless. This was something that, as she explained to me the way that it worked, I was like, then you're just wasting everybody's time. And she's like, yeah. She got a promotion recently and thus has been let in on the secret about some things. And one of the things that she has been told about the way the self-evaluations work is that they have been told ahead of time how much money somebody is allowed to have as a raise. And you have to tailor the evaluation that you make to reflect the money that you are offering them. In other words, your raise is not merit-based. You can't go in and say, I think I'm doing great work, I believe I deserve a raise, and expect that they will take your assessment of yourself into consideration. And you cannot say, I've been doing outstanding work, and expect them to even agree with your assessment, even if it's true. Because the only reason that they do this is to give the illusion that there is a merit-based system. It's a fake. It's tricking you. The point of it is to keep the illusion going. But the truth is, your raise has been determined before you walk into the room, and the way they talk to you and the things that they bring up about your work are like potentially completely fabricated or exaggerated to give them an excuse for why they aren't giving you the raise that you were hoping for. And so I don't think she ever like realized just how completely pointless they were. She knew that it felt like a waste of her time because no matter what she said, she never got the money that she was hoping for. But she always felt like it was because she didn't push hard enough. It was her blaming herself for being taken advantage of. Like, she was giving in too easily. And a lot of that is a fear that a lot of Black women have, specifically because they can't they can't advocate for themselves the way that white women can, or certainly not like white men can. So she has always been a little bit reticent to really push things. And the that combined with the fact that they never intended to give her any more money has led to a stagnation in her wages for a while, until getting this promotion, which, like, it's giving her more, it's giving her more money, but not enough to actually start breaking even, considering everything that has been going on health-wise. So, yeah, the system is fucked up, and I'm just, the more I learn about how all of this works, the more I just want to burn things down. It's just really cruel to keep up this facade that you're going to be able to, like, work towards something better. I believe that there was a time where that was true, where self-evaluations meant something, but it's obviously just a fucking clown show now. And the exit interview thing is sort of interesting because, like, it's meant to be a reflection for the company to see what they could have improved to keep somebody working for them. That is supposedly what it is for. And a lot of people take the opportunity during an exit interview to really, like, unload all of the stuff that they have been holding in with their workplace that they haven't felt free to talk about for many different reasons. And it can sort of backfire, because sometimes the exit interview, like, they go so hard with their complaints and their accusations that the references they had put down for their next job, like, it becomes something that if they don't already have something lined up, it could reflect in what people say when they get a phone call. Or alternatively, if you decide that you want to come back to the job, you realize things didn't work out for you where you were. If you've left a real shitty exit interview, they may not be interested when they would have been otherwise, if you had just been able to sort of, like, be more even in the way that you spoke. But yeah. So anyway, this, Colin brings him a weird, like, award for sales. J. Sturkle, Q4 Sales Leader, 1997. And he says, I got it at an estate sale, but you get the drift. Oh my God. And he says, congratulations, shakes his hand, and then looks at the camera like they're about to have their photo taken together. So Nandor, talking to Patton Oswalt, he says, like, I have given Guillermo my friendship, and it's not something that I give to everyone. And he says, I thought Guillermo had earned it. And he begins to talk about himself. I thought something like this had happened with me and somebody else a couple of years ago. And this is when he begins to crush his hand and say, we are not talking about you right now, Patton Oswalt. But eventually it starts to become clear. I don't think that quite to the extent of reality that it should with Nandor, but that he hasn't handled the situation. And by this situation, I don't just mean me, like, wanting to kill Guillermo, but just handled Guillermo as a friend very well. So this is when Laszlo turns up at Guillermo's. He does this very loud sort of, like, you know, audio show with Foley effects that he's a housekeeper coming to check on things and then leaving. And he tells Guillermo to turn something on the television so that it will drown out the sound of their voices. And it's just a sequence of him being a little bit distracted by whatever's on the television. At first, it's like a you know, nature thing with bears. And then he's like, we need something more consistently loud to drown our voices. And then it's airplanes whirring. And he keeps trying to be like, I may have been hard on you in the past. And could you put on something that is as loud but less percussive? And then it's engines, because he's turned on a racetrack. Perfect. I love that there's like an option that is ideal to everything he asks. And then finally Laszlo's like, what about programs of the adult variety? And Guillermo foolishly puts this on. I just wanted to be like, Guillermo, you know he's not going to be able to focus. What do you think is going to happen here? Like, it's sort of funny because I think of Laszlo as somebody who probably watches porn all the time. But then I sort of realized that he doesn't, like, I don't think that they have a TV that has access to, you know what I mean? They've got like local channels. I imagine them as only being connected to whatever they can get standard with a satellite or whatever kind of hookup they've got. But I don't believe that they have like a streaming service or anything that could get him porn. And I just don't see Laszlo as somebody who's going out and buying DVDs and bringing them back. It just doesn't really feel to me like something he would do. Especially, we have seen him going to some very antiquated sort of porn setups where you watch on a little like individual, I'm trying to think of what you even call it, because a projector isn't quite right, but that's closer than than any other word I can come up with. So my first thought was like, oh, he'll be able to tune it out because he has it on all the time. And then I was like, I bet he doesn't have it on all the time. I bet maybe it'll be kind of a novel experience seeing whatever this porn looks like. And indeed, he keeps like trying to focus and repeating himself about how long he's known him. And he points at these women. What do you think they're going to do? There's something about the asking of that question, like you don't know what they're going to do. Come on, bud. It's a porno, and it's two women lying on a bed. What do you think they're going to do? I'm about to tell you about something that I've never told anyone else before. And of course, as he is saying this, he completely loses the train of thought, focuses on the television, and tells Guillermo, you're going to have to give me a minute. As he says, good Lord. Oh, God. So he speaks to the television while Laszlo is distracted. He speaks to the camera and says that really what's going on for him right now, it's not even the fear of death that's bothering him. It's like, I lost the vampires. They were my friends. He's saying this in a way that's like, I know that they're here right now, which indicates that they are kind of your friends. But honestly, I don't really want you to believe that, Guillermo, because they're not really. He says, I always figured if I got turned into a vampire, that it would bring me closer to them, but it's just left me feeling more alone than ever. So this is when we go to Patton Oswalt sitting on the edge of a building with a cup of coffee talking to Nandor. And he says, your friendship with Guillermo is very special, right? And I bet killing a friend would really hurt. And Nandor says, I imagine it would it'd be one of the worst feelings a person could possibly have. And he says, what if you repair the friendship? And Nandor, you want me to not kill him? That's your suggestion? After hearing my tale of deceit and betrayal? All that betray me must be destroyed. And he stands up on the edge of the building and kicks Patton Oswalt over the side, but then stands there touching his beard reflectively and says he does make a good point, though. And I really liked this. Like, I love the idea. My headcanon for this is that, like, Patton Oswalt got in touch and was like, I'd really like to be on one time. And they were like, what, is it a recurring thing? And he's like, no, I just want to die in, like, a fun way. And they were like, oh, how about, like, kicked off the side of a building, something like that. And he went, perfect, exactly. So that's the end of Patton Oswalt. Bless him. He really does seem like, I don't know, it seemed to me like he was having a pretty good time. I don't know if I'm just imagining that, but I feel like this would be one of the great joys of being a comedy actor, is just getting to drop in on projects like this every now and then, So anyway, let's see. After this, we go back to Guillermo. I don't remember what happened to Laszlo at this point. I don't feel like he's still sitting on the edge of the bed here, so I don't remember what happens. But this is when the guide, Evil Mabel, turns up with a condolence card that says, sorry for your loss, on the front, and then she has just scribbled underneath it with a marker, of your life. I enjoyed this a lot. I feel like if you had put just sorry for your loss of life, it would have, like, grammatically made more sense. But sorry for your loss of your life, for some reason, is a lot funnier. I think just because it isn't quite grammatically correct. Guillermo says, is there anyone who doesn't know I'm here? And she says, usually I'm the last to know, so probably not. And I also brought some friends who wanted to say goodbye. And I was so hoping I would never have to see these fucking creatures again. But here they are, trooping into his hotel room in creepy fucking fashion. I hated it. Every second of it, I despised. It was so uncomfortable and weird. I am never going to be able to get over this. Like, y'all, it's awful. I just can't. So, at this point, Nandor calls Guillermo and tells him that he is with Guillermo's mother. Very obviously, after what we just saw, the threat that Guillermo believes is being made here isn't really the threat that's being made. I knew this, but he doesn't. And it's a very effective means of getting him out of his hidey hole. So he sprints to his mother's house, sprints by being a bat, and finds Nandor on the couch with her looking at baby photos. Amazing. And he stands up and comes at Guillermo. And there's a real, like, not sure who would win in this fight kind of energy between the two of them. Nandor, something happened recently, and it's made me change my mind. My friend Patton Oswalt, he passed away quite suddenly, and it didn't feel good losing a friend. And Guillermo says, I don't believe you. Why should I believe you? And he comes right up to Guillermo and takes the stake that he's holding up for, like, defense and presses it against the base of his throat and says, if I'm lying, then kill me now. Like, that's how you know. And I don't feel like this actually makes sense in terms of, like, knowing somebody is telling the truth. Because, like, how do they know? The point is that they're asking whether you're lying because they don't know. So if they were going to kill you if you were lying, then do you know what I'm saying? Like, it would require that he already know the information that he's asking about. It doesn't make any sense. It's fine. But as they're leaving, this was a gag I loved. Guillermo's mom is, like, right behind Nandor with a stake. And he stops her, but I don't think he intended to stop her using what do you call it? Mesmerization. Guys, what is it called? Oh my God. Hypnotizing? It's not. Is it hypnotizing? Well, regardless, I don't think that he meant to do that. And it seems like she's very much in sort of a weird state when she drops the steak. I was sort of confused by this, guys, because we know that that doesn't work on Guillermo. So I just would have assumed it wouldn't work on his mom either. And I don't really know why it did. Like, you know what I'm saying? Is he more of a vampire killer than she is? Why would he be? I don't know. But anyway, so they go back to the house, and Nandor comes in and says, I no longer plan to kill Guillermo. He will live with us as an equal, as a vampire. Where once we were 4, we are now 5. And I love that even after everything, the fucking guide is still not being included. I think your math is off, and she's just like sitting there. I really was hoping that there would be a little bit of, I'm gonna fuck with you guys again if you don't include me, and a constant sort of threat that made them need to back off. But evidently, they feel they've made their case about what they were saying in that one clip, and that's all they needed to do, and they don't have to put forth any effort anymore. And this is when Nadja says, if I'd known he was going to stay with us, I would have said just kill him. Which that jives very much with what I was thinking she thought. So this is when Nandor, I love this. He's the only one who really understood the thing about his Van Helsing blood interfering with transitioning into a vampire. And then here, when Laszlo's like, but he's not fully a vampire, Nandor's like, I have looked into this sort of thing, and you never thought of the simplest solution. You never got Guillermo to drink human blood. And I love Colin Robinson. Wait, you never thought of that? And Laszlo just says, shut up. Confession, I didn't either. And I do feel kind of dumb. I'm not going to lie. That feels super obvious, and I never thought of it. Didn't occur to me. I just figured he was going to be in limbo and he'd have to live that way. So he takes the glass and they begin to chant, drink, drink, drink. It's interesting to me that he sniffs it and he doesn't seem enticed by the smell of it. There's no like thirst in him that seems to awaken at the fragrance of it. But he drinks it and it almost looks like he's going to throw up. Like, there's a retching, a hand over his mouth, and then all of a sudden, he straightens, and there's like and his eyes move, and his teeth pop out, and boom, fangs. And he says, I've never felt more alive. And I love Laszlo off to the side, just mumbling to himself, I really should have thought of that. So Guillermo just starts screaming about how he's a vampire. I cannot get enough of Nadja brushing Nadja Doll's hair with this disgusted look on her face at him screaming how excited he is to be a vampire. It just really gave like the vibe of like fucking noobs. You know what I mean? And honestly, I get that he's so excited that he's finally a vampire. Completely get it. You've been waiting for this for over a decade. So yeah. But I have to be honest with you all. I did think that he needed to tone it down a little bit here because it was giving, like, it just felt a little bit immature or childish. I don't know. So at this point, Guillermo, he flies straight up into the air with his fangs out and manages a nice, easy landing. He sprints around the house. And Colin says, one sip of blood and he's like Cornholio over here. Who is that, guys? What's Cornholio? I don't know what that means. I assumed Cornholio was like, oh, he's an asshole. But I don't know if that's true, if that's what that means or not. But this is when he picks up the glass. He drinks the rest of the blood and smashes the glass on the floor before holding his arms out to the sides and saying, "Behold what I have become." Oh my God. Dude, you've got to stop. Come on now. You know, it's just if they were giving him a different energy in this room, him behaving like this would feel part of a celebration. Everybody's cheering him on and excited for him. But that's not what's happening. So him doing this all alone just feels extra sad. But then he says, let's do something. Why are we sitting on our asses? Let's fucking get up and do something. And Nandor says, now we hunt. And, you know, I was sort of suspicious earlier. I was saying, like, did Nandor set this up so that he would be sure to not like being a vampire? But he's not the one who suggests, like, going out and doing something. Maybe he knew that Guillermo would suggest it, that this was the mood he would be in right after his transformation. I don't know. But yeah, they all get up and leave. Colin Robinson has a moment of like, maybe I won't, but then he does get up and he just says FOMO to the camera as he leaves. And we go to this place called Spaghettini's with a sign outside that says closed for a private party. And when we go inside, it's a series of bodies, blood everywhere. Y'all, it is truly the bloodiest scene I think we've ever had in this show. The walls are covered in it. And everybody is sitting at their own individual table, drinking on their own individual person. Meanwhile, Guillermo is standing by this dude and looking at him. This guy's already dead. No, he's not. Oh, correction. Nandor didn't kill him. He says, I bonked this one on the head just for you. They're much easier to drain and kill when they're not wriggling around. Is this a genuine effort at, like, helping him? Or is he trying to ensure that Guillermo has to kill so that he knows what it takes? And Guillermo just says, I'm not that hungry. You guys, I think he's telling the truth. At first I thought it was going to be, I'm pretending that I'm not that hungry because I'm just so uncomfortable. But the face that he's making, I really think he's like nauseous, you know? And Nandor says, well, don't leave him hanging around too long because when they're unconscious, their blood loses its zing. And then we go to a talking head moment. And I loved this because everything that I said in the last episode is what Guillermo goes through here. Like, he's killed vampires and he has helped capture humans. He has helped dispose of human bodies. He has been tangential to a lot of human deaths. But he has never actually killed a person. And he says that when he leaned in, he could smell his shampoo. And all I kept thinking was, this guy was at CVS just sniffing away at all of these shampoos. And says, I think I'll get this one because it reminds me of where I used to go camping as a kid. I can't do this, I'm sorry. And he just takes his mic off and like runs out of the room. I felt like that was very significant because Guillermo has run out of the room and demanded privacy a few times, but he's never taken his mic off. So that felt different. And the camera stays put on the shadowy alcove behind him. And Nandor comes out and says, this is just what I was afraid of. He isn't cut out to be a vampire. I'll fix it. And he takes out his genie lamp. I really thought it was going to be like, oh, you had one last wish. Surprise, surprise. It is not. He starts to make his wish, and the genie's like, you ran out of wishes a long time ago. Have you just been carrying me around? Yeah, maybe. Well, nice to see you again. You can go ahead and can I stretch my legs a little? I wish I could help you, but that's very funny. Get in the fucking lamp. I thought maybe Nandor could hand the lamp over to Guillermo. That's what I expected. I thought you just give it to him. It's a new owner. And now he has access to however many wishes, which would also be kind of fun. You know, we have a season where Guillermo's now a vampire, coping with that. And maybe he has these wishes that he keeps using to try and make being a vampire easier to bear. And none of it really works. None of it makes him feel any more okay with everything. So this is when we have Nandor setting up this fake ceremony for Guillermo. The ceremony of vampiric transmogrification. Don't be nervous. We've all been through it. And he's slowly like tying this kind of weird looking, it's a cape around Guillermo's shoulders, but it really looks like a macrame that would hang on the wall, like something that's just meant to be a decoration. And I think that's probably what it is. Like he's just taken some shit from around the house. So he has to bring Derek into the mix and tries to make it seem like, well, you know, he's your maker, so gotta do it. But it turns out there's a whole other reason for him being here. So everybody's gathered in a circle with these weird banners of ancient sigils and whatnot. And he asks Guillermo a couple of like ceremonial questions about whether he's of sound mind and body. And this choice can only be made by you. We vampires here are only witnesses. And he says, mistress of ceremony, prepare the flames. At this point, Evil Mabel steps forward and lights all of the candles in the room at once. Is this a thing all vamps can do? Or is this just her? Like, I don't remember this power. Just saying. Curious. So then Nandor says, here comes an answer that has to come for your heart. This is the last time you get to make this final choice. Would you rather be a human or a vampire? And there's this long pause, and Guillermo admits he would rather be a human. And I was really not sure that he would. I kind of thought, like I said, the next season we would go into it with him being a vamp and we would have to deal with it. And so this was going to be him starting everything off with a lie. But no, he tells the truth. And he's like, it's just all the killing. That's, you know, and Nandor says you can spare us the details. You want to be a human. There's no shame in that. We can do something about it. Mistress of ceremony, distribute the hoods. I love this so much, you guys. She's handing out these hoods that are like from a tray, having people pick them up. And there's a lot of like mumbling about it. Who gets a hood, whether it's going to fit or not, yada, yada, yada. But it turns out the only person who's actually going to put it on is Derek. Everybody else just doesn't put it on. There is something so sweet about the fact that Derek is immediately willing to take their word on this and follow instructions. And it's just so sad knowing what's about to happen. So this is when he says, proceed to position 2. And Derek stays. They get the stake and a hammer, a mallet, and position it in front of Derek's chest. And Nandor says, if you kill him, you will go back to being human. You will just get a month older really quickly. Oh, I guess that answers my question, y'all. Because I had been asking earlier, is there anybody who like turned back into a human and stuck around as a human? But if you age really quickly, then more than likely, unless you'd only been a vampire for 10 years or 20 years, anybody who got turned back to a human is just going to die. So that's interesting. Okay. So yeah, I really didn't think that Guillermo was going to go through with it, guys. I thought once again that we were going to reach this place of, I can't go through with it. That presented with, you have to kill this guy in order to make your life what you want it to be, he wouldn't be able to go ahead and do it. And would stay as a vampire even though he doesn't want to be, because he feels too guilty to kill Derek after requesting that Derek turn him and everything the way that it happened. And it's interesting because, like, I keep on sort of taking Guillermo's gentle nature as an indication of him being a good person. And that's not true. Guillermo is actually kind of, you know, like, he stops for a second and he says, I can't do it. Derek starts to lift his hood up. Nandor says, you want me to do it? I don't know. I do. Give me that. So Nandor gets to kill Derek. And I just really want to be clear. Guillermo says, I don't know, because he can't bear to admit he does want Nandor to do it. So when I'm saying that, like, I keep thinking his gentleness makes him a good person, it's just kind of a weakness. But he is ultimately somewhat selfish a person. And I lose sight of that a lot. So, yeah, this moment, like, he goes down, and when he turns around, he's got, like, a full beard, and his hair has grown, and his glasses now, he needs, like, his real ones again, because his eyesight went back to shit. And there is the first, like, genuinely kind moment that I can remember from Nandor, where he has Guillermo's glasses on him and hands them over because he was so certain how this was all going to go. I wasn't ready, you guys. There was something about that kind of got me a little bit. I didn't think he would care to be prepared like this, you know? So yeah, it turns out that this entire ceremony was faked, and all that he, like, the banners and everything, he just, like, found them around the house because they were creepy enough to go with the look he was trying to achieve. At this point, the Baron, we have a sitter for the night, so we're gonna head out. And of course, now we've got Guillermo just kneeling next to his friend's body and is trying to, like, decide what we do now. The killing of this vamp, it's sort of interesting because I don't think I had stopped to consider before. He's killed a lot of vampires, and I don't feel like I really took note of the fact that their bodies remain, that they don't explode into dust like in Buffy or explode into blood fountains like on True Blood. This is just Eric's body sitting there like a regular human body would do. And finally, he and Laszlo drag Derek to the fucking necromancer. What's his face? I can't remember his name. The one that Laszlo is convinced is a charlatan. And even in this moment is still, like, mocking him for how fucking showy his bullshit is. And he raises Derek, and there's a moment of just, like, Derek can't talk. Derek is, like, awake. He's alive, technically. And he tries to say, what's up, dude, to Guillermo. But he can't speak exactly. And, like, the fucking... You guys, the stake is still embedded in his chest. They didn't even take it out. At this point, he's like... The necromancer's like, what are you going to do with him? If you pay a fee, we do have a rehoming option. And all of a sudden, here comes Topher. Topher that got, what do you call it? That got zombified, I guess, a couple seasons ago. And he comes out and he does like the whole like zombie bit with like stumbling towards them. And then all of a sudden he steps back and says, JK, and a spin. How you doing, Guillermo? Topher, you look like shit. And he says, I'm undead, but I'm making the most of it. Once you get used to the zombie body, you can actually learn to talk normal again like this. Pretty cool, huh? I love this, actually. The way things ended with Topher before was funny, and I did not like Topher, so I was totally okay with it. But I love the idea that there's actually like a way that you can live not really a normal life, but a life still that we didn't know about. So yeah, Derek tries to like introduce himself, and he says, it's going to take a couple months to learn how to use the old mouth again. But in the meantime, the more the merrier. Derek, how would you like to join a gang of crazy motherfuckers just like yourself? There's always room for a new friend. And you guys, this was so sweet. I know it's like a fucked up thing to say, but Derek has just wanted to have friends so bad this whole time. And the vamps did not embrace him. They didn't want anything to do with him, really. And now he's being like ushered into this whole other community. It's so cute. Oh my God. Bless him. A reminder, all of this, he's still got the stake sticking out of his chest. Like, still. And he goes down the stairs with him, and the last thing he says is just, cool. I'm here for it. I kind of hope we get more zombies coming up. They haven't been a part of things. If they're not a part of things, it's fine. But I wouldn't mind it now that I know the way that this can go. I love Guillermo. Do you take Venmo? Venmo? I take cash or gold coin or Zelle. Just FYI, everybody. Zelle sucks. They never work for me. I've tried to use it so many times and it has fucked me over. But anyway, I digress. All right, I've got to wrap up, but that was a fun season, if a bit uneven. I would have liked more Guillermo as a vamp. I really would. But what can you do? Curious what happens next season, though, because why continue to be a familiar if you're not interested in becoming a vampire anymore? Now what? You know? And I believe that there is a next season. So who knows what they're doing? All right, everybody. Thank you again. Until next time. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.